Hey guys, how's everything going? Well, as the title says, today I'm going to be doing a readout from my writings, The Sorrow Story. And this is going to be a lot more in depth than what we have with the comic. Um, I do apologize for the poor quality of video though. Yeah, I can't really help that due to basically this is what I got, just the webcam built into the laptop here. But I hope that doesn't discourage you from sticking around. And hang on. Yeah, got a bit of a runny nose, guys, so I do apologize if I sneeze or anything like that throughout the video. So, without further ado, I'm going to get straight into the story here. Oh, don't tell me. Oh, here we are. And do feel free to comment as I go along and whatnot. I'll be keeping an eye on that as I go. Alright, Sorrow by Ryan Melrose. Written and illustrated by Ryan Melrose. Who'd have thought? Based off the comic book by Ryan Melrose. Wow, I had no idea I contributed so much. Alright. I'm actually glad because I actually thought I lost all this. I cleaned up my files recently, so I actually thought I lost all this, so I'm glad this wasn't wiped out with everything else. Chapter 1 A Shadow of the City. It was dark, cold, and stormy. Night. I'll do that again. It was a dark, cold, and stormy night in the skies above the city of Frayed. Oh, I've changed the name of the city. Alright then. It was a dark, cold, and stormy night in the skies above the city of Frailty. Why, Frailty looked like any other city at night. Beautiful, with the city lights that made every night feel like Christmas. But it was just the disguise. But as the name suggests, the city is hanging on by a thread. The streets were filled with people living in poverty and were overrun with crime. So much crime the police could barely do a thing. But the Frailty Police Department is understaffed. Most police officers resigned and moved away due to the high casualty rate for policemen and women. It seems, for the most part, the people have given up hope. Oop. That things can ever get better for them. This city is just one big infestation. A city some say that God has given up on. However, there are few who have not given up on this city, such as homicide detective Frank Gavin and his partner, Detective Malcolm Sinclair, who are responding to a body found on 17 Jacqueline Avenue. It used to be a soda factory, but since its closing 10 years ago, it's been the home of squatters and other desperate people trying to keep a roof over their heads. Detective Gavin and Sinclair search the scene as they are greeted by a girl who apparently lives in this abandoned soda factory. Hello, ma'am. I am Detective Frank Gavin. This is my partner, Detective Malcolm Sinclair. Are you the one who called the precinct? Something about a dead body? Frank asked. Yes, officers. It's just this way. The girl responded as she began to show the detectives the location of the body. So, how do you know it's a dead body, may I ask? The girl seemed to be a little unsure of herself about that question. You'll have to see for yourselves. She leads them upstairs to a bathroom where she claimed to have discovered the body. Which, as they discovered, there really is a dead body in the bathtub. It was truly a horrible sight to behold, like straight out of a horror movie. There was a dead, blue-haired woman inside the tub. Her wrists were slashed, blood dripped. The side of the tub on the wall was a satanic pentagram on the wall, written in her blood. So what do you make of this, Frank? Detective Sinclair asked. Frank Gavin takes a good look at the scene. Kneels before the dead girl, takes her hand. He stays there for a few moments before getting back on his feet. It's got to be suicide, right? Perhaps a devil worshipper who couldn't handle it anymore? Sinclair guessed. No, this was a murder, not a suicide, for starters. There's no evidence of a sharp object. If this was suicide, the bladed object in question would be here. Frank gathers more of his thoughts before continuing. Also, note the wound on her hand. They are defensive wounds. This girl was a fighter. She was also happy. She had just got a new job at the daycare center. Hard to imagine that she would end her life after receiving such news. Wait. How do you know that? There's a congratulatory letter inside her purse over there. Frank responded as he pointed out the purse under the bathroom sink. Sinclair searches the purse, and he indeed finds a congratulatory letter from the daycare center. Exactly where Frank said it was. Okay, man, for real. How do you do that? How do you always know these things? Seriously, every crime scene you find evidence in areas you don't even search. It's creepy, Frank, Sinclair says as he looks over the letter. I wish I could tell you. I just have a knack for it. Ever since I was born, I honestly can't explain it. Then, the body examiners show up. Even though the examination wasn't very helpful, pretty much repeating everything Frank had just said, this was no suicide. It was a satanic cult murder to look like a suicide of a satanic cult member. Wrong, this is not a satanic cult. There is no religion here. Just a group of people using dogma beliefs as a way of justifying murder. Frank stated, talking over the body examiner. If you say so, Detective. My job is just to examine the body and the evidence. It's your job to figure out the who and why. The examiner says as they move the corpse onto a stretcher and begin wheeling her down. Excuse me. I'm just saying, don't throw words like satanic cult around. It only legitimizes the crime in their eyes. Makes them think the evil they commit is justified. Also, it could start a panic, Frank said, as he began bagging and tagging the evidence. The police had arrived and taped off the building. Unfortunately, the homeless who live there will have to find a new place, as detectives Frank and Malcolm finally take their leave. After filing their initial report and logging all evidence found at the scene, the detectives call it a night and go their separate ways. 3 hours later, Frank Gavin will be called again at home. He answers the phone as he was just getting some rest. There has been another murder. Very well. Call Sinclair. Have him meet me there, and we'll check it out. Oop, too far. As Frank arrives, Sinclair is waiting for him. They move into this alleyway. They see a body leaned against a wall. The scene is like nothing they had seen before. It looked as if the victim's head had exploded all along the wall. Sinclair and Frank looked like they were about to lose their lunches at the sight of it. They see a patrolman talking with this blonde woman. Ma'am, I heard you saw what happened here. Are you able to tell me? Frank had asked the lady. He could tell she is traumatized as she is shakingly lights a cigarette, trying to calm her nerves. As she finally gathers the courage to tell them what happened. My name is Natalia. It happened about an hour ago. I was walking through this alley as a shortcut home when that man tried to mug me. She takes another drag on her cigarette as she continues. He violently threw me to the ground. He had a gun at me. Then this thing showed up. It came down from the sky. All right, and you say this thing committed the crime? What was this thing? Sinclair had asked. It was a demon, a monster. It looked like Dracula, Natalia stated, as she began to feel nervous again, taking a bigger drag on her smoke. What do you mean it looked like Dracula? Frank asked, offering her a light. Well, it had a red vampire-like cape, like the one from the movies. Wore a big red hat. It didn't look human, though it spoke perfect English. He simply stared at the mugger, and the next thing I know, his head blew up, Natalia said, sounding hysterical. Just like that? Sinclair wondered, wondering if Natalia's statement is at all credible. Look, I know it's I know how it sounds. Don't look at me that way. He tried to do the same to me. I was so scared. Natalia, sounding more agitated. You said it spoke. What did it say? Frank asked, looking Natalia in the eyes. It said no one escapes judgment. After Sinclair and Frank finish taking Natalia's statement, they leave, taking Natalia with them to make sure she was safe. They decided to drop her off personally to the hospital to get examined. After which, they filed the incident at the precinct and called it a night. They certainly weren't going to put an APB out on Dracula. Chapter 2: The Purifier. Meanwhile, on the northern side of the city, it was quiet. The streets were deserted, as if this was the perfect part of the city to live. However, like the rest of the city, it may look beautiful with its city lights from the distance. The northern side of the city of Frailty was just as dangerous as any other area of the city. Just because you can't hear the screams doesn't mean there is no terror. There seems to be some sort of commotion coming from the abandoned house in the center of the street. Not loud enough to turn heads. If you were living in a normal city, in a normal neighborhood, however, anyone who lives in the city of Frailty knows. Even the slightest bit of noise can be something big. But in a big, rotting city like Frailty, no one was going to hear it. You were on your own. No one was coming to save you. That is the reality that Hillary Jennings and her boyfriend, Lucas Fay, would face together. They were the most popular kids who attended Jocklewood High School, one of the suburban schools of the city. Oh yes, they were homecoming queen and king, and prom king and queen. Yes, they were a shining example of how good people in this city could be if they only dared stand up against evil and corruption. Or were they? They did everything together. They made sandwiches and fed the homeless. And they also fundraised for various charitable organizations, even volunteered at the homeless shelters, and taught underprivileged children how to read. Yes, they were true selfless beings who would have done anything for anyone who needed help. Unfortunately, that made them the perfect target for those alleged Satanist dogmas who used the Satan religion and what they thought it represented as a way of disguising their true evil intentions. This group of alleged satanic radicals had kidnapped Hillary and Lucas, had them tied up, their mouths taped, and kept them in the cellar of the center house of Hawken Street. They may have been left there for days, but now it would seem they were ready to serve their purpose as the group of kidnappers into the cellar. Each member's had a goat mask concealing their face, except for the leader, who wore a green custom painted devil form of a mask, maroon hood, and a weird costume that looked like something out of a comic book Comic Con convention. They seemed to be live streaming to their private website called hischosen.com. They seemed to have millions upon millions of subscribers, millions of people watched, and condoned this sort of behavior. As the leader walks to the center of the room, he turns to the phone tablet, filming him as he is ready to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, it is I, the Purifier, one of his chosen, back with another one of the messages he shared with me in a dream. First off, thank you, our fellow cultist, for suggesting we disguise ourselves as a satanic cult. It has thrown off the police. They have no clue what it is we are actually doing. The fools have no idea we intend to summon a real deal, a true deity. The Purifier pauses, looks at Hillary and Lucas, who can only sit there in horror, unable to stop whatever is about to happen to them. The Purifier looks back to the camera and begins again. You see these two people here with me? They're the type of people who believe in a false god. A god that, no matter what you do in life, no matter how much you have sinned, if you confess your sins and accept the Lord into your life as your Savior, you are forgiven, scot-free, nothing happens. But they are dead wrong, and I shall demonstrate. Yes, there is an evil in this universe. An evil that presents itself to every living being on the planet. It wants to come here and be with us. And he is no devil. He is the true entity of darkness, the all-powerful Rollera. And it's he I offer, these two, as an offering to strengthen our Lord and Master, who shall accept my offering. The Purifier pauses for dramatic effect before continuing. You see, my fellow Rollera worshippers, Lucas Fay and his girlfriend here, Hillary, aren't as good as they seem to be. The Purifier says as he removes a bag of cocaine from the pockets of both Hillary and Lucas. Excuse me. You see, while they are members of two of the wealthiest families in this city, doing all those good deeds, feeding the homeless, and volunteering at the shelter, here is what they were doing in plain sight. The Purifier has one of his fellow cultists operate a projector. A video is displayed which shows Lucas and Hillary slipping bits of cocaine into the soup and actually taking money from the homeless. It also shows small amounts of cocaine in the sandwiches that they were giving out to the homeless people in the streets. They were keeping them addicted. The video stops as Purifier gives his online followers a choice. So, what shall it be, my fellow cultists? Shall I purify them, send them to our master, or let them go? Purifier awaits until every viewer votes on the poll, and Lucas and Hillary look on in horror as the Purifier's henchmen start dousing them in gasoline. The votes were unanimous. They shall be purified. Purifier lit a match and threw it, setting Lucas and Hillary alight. The Purifier and his cultists leave as they continue to stream Hillary and Lucas's ritualistic execution, as both Lucas and Hillary, slowly but surely, burned to death screaming. Though they weren't screaming because of the pain, as just before their death, they had visuals of Rawlera, the deity the Purifier had mentioned. That was only the beginning. For those killed in Rawlera's name spent an eternity in absolute fear and terror of a true hell. Chapter 3: The Blind Man. It is now 3 a.m. at the heart of the city of Frailty. The stormy night above had no signs of letting up. Alleyway is left silent, not a soul to it except a blind man sitting up against the steel fence. He seems sad, almost crying, in silence. He had dirty, scruffy blonde beard, a moustache, missing teeth, old torn clothes. His name was George Gallagher, a man who has been the victim of poor circumstances of late. Only a few years ago, he was a great painter, truly famous all around the world. Unfortunately, however, George was struck with a sudden case of blindness, which took his landscape painting gift away from him. As the income dried up, his wife left him all alone, as he lost his estate and everything else that had made him the lonely soul with no hope that's groveling in the filthy alleyway. George Gallagher was a broken man, the type that was waiting to be released from this unjust, uncaring world that has seemed to turn its back on many others like George. As he sits there helpless, he is startled by something. Something landing behind him in the distance. It was the same creature that allegedly saved Natalia from that mugger. The alleyway is well lit up, as this creature, more visible than it was last time, he definitely had a red vampire-like cape, a red pointy hat, and his skin was like a latex grey, as if it's part of a costume, yet it's skin. His eyes have what look to be a purple domino mask around it. Again, it's skin. His eyes glow yellow as he beams at the blind man before him. "Oh, someone there?" George said with a flicker of fear in his voice. "Don't come any closer to me, you hear me?" He could hear the being watching him and getting closer and closer to him. "Okay. I'll tell you what. Just take what you want, please. Just leave me alone," George pleaded. Why are you living out here, mister? The creature had asked. Because I've nowhere else to go. Whoever you are, illness took my sight, while society stole everything else from me, George said as he burst into tears. The creature kneels before the blind man and touches his shoulder with his red gloved hand. As he does, he gets flashes of George's life. He sees everything from George's birth into a wealthy family who had high expectations of him. His parents wanted him to be a doctor or a lawyer, but he got into painting instead. The creature saw how George proved his family wrong when he rose to fame in the art industry, and saw that despite his fame, he was an honourable and humble man who always gave back to charity and the community. Then the creature saw the bad parts of his life, the glaucoma illness that took his sight, the people who conned him out of his estate with false contracts, his wife leaving him. The creature removes its hand from George's shoulder, and comes around looking at the man's blind eyes. You know what, George? I may be able to return to you something you have lost. The creature said, as it placed the left red gloved hand over the blind man's eyes. A bright yellow energy began to glow from the creature's hand. George is not sure what's going on, but only he can feel strength in his eyes returning. The nerves are responding as if they were years ago, healthy and perfect, as if this creature has taken away the illness that stole not only his blindness but his life. The creature removes its hand as George opens his eyes and sees, for the first time in years, he can see the rainfall. The city around him, the streets, the city lights. It was so beautiful to him. Oh, bless you, sir. You've given me back my sight. Who are you, mister? George asked the creature. The creature looks at George face to face. George showed no fear of this unusual humanoid creature, as the creature simply said, in ancient times they called me Sorrow, so that's who I am. How can I repay you, Sorrow? George asked in gratitude to Sorrow. Keep painting, George. Keep showing me the beauty of this world, the beauty humanity needs. Keep being yourself. Do that for me, and I'll consider your debt repaid. Sorrow said, as the glowing energy surrounded him, as he seems to teleport away. Sorrow is now atop an abandoned church overlooking the city. Mm. Chapter 4. New Partner. It was 6 a.m. and it looked like it was still dark out. Detective Frank Gavin awakens in his old, run-down looking apartment, and Frank is ready to start the new day. He looked exhausted, not having much sleep. 3 hours to be exact. He makes himself a strong cup of coffee and some toast as he watches the news for any updates. The mayor of Frailty, Donald Javokolich, has not resorted to calling in the National Guard, as more outraged citizens are protesting the state of this city, their homes. However, then the broadcast is interrupted as a disturbing feed is being broadcast. The feed from the Purifier's live stream showed his actions of what he put Lucas and Hillary through. The whole city witnessed in horror as the Purifier revealed the true name of his master, Rollera. The the exposing of the crimes committed by Lucas and Hillary and the eventual execution of Lucas and Hillary. Oh, went too far again. Yeah, I went way too far. As Frank watched, he came down with a painful, splitting headache. Frank screamed in agonizing pain as he saw flashes and glimpses, first of the horror Lucas and Hillary endured, then he saw Rollera himself, a being Frank could not even begin to explain. He couldn't describe what he was looking at. Supposedly a gigantic humanoid blank face of darkness, just red eyes, a glowing Y-shaped mark down the right side of its face, a dark humanoid body, long mane-like hair, four spider legs, two arms with clawed dark hands. Frank was fighting agonizing pain. Eventually, the vision stopped and the pain ceased. He then switches the TV off and decides to put the visions out of his mind. Perhaps he was just stressed, half asleep. Yes, that must be it. He leaves his home, locks the door. As he leaves, he runs to see his landlord peeking her head through the door to scowl at him, like she did every morning and night when he returned. It was obvious Frank wasn't married, no children, just a single guy getting by and in an unforgiving city. He drove in his car, picked up his partner Sinclair, and headed immediately for the police precinct. As they enter the building, they are greeted by a fellow detective named Hodges. Dark hair, slightly obese, cigarette dangling in his mouth. Detective Gavin, Detective Sinclair. You guys better head upstairs. Captain Royce wishes to see you both. I wouldn't keep him waiting if I were you. He's in one of his moods. Frank and Sinclair journey up the stairs, walk through the precinct, past their desks, and venture inside the captain's office. There you two are. Sinclair, Gavin. Sinclair, Gavin's. Yep. There you two are, Sinclair. Gavin, take a seat. I have a special job for you two. What type of job, Captain? We weren't supposed to. Weren't we supposed to be catching those murdering radicals? The ones that stream an execution citywide? Frank had asked. Oh, Jenkins and Hodges can handle that, the captain said. I need you both to capture this red caped character running about the city. You will be working alongside Fate. They said they've sent their best man, Agent I, to join in the investigation. We are to give him our full cooperation. Sir, if Fate is getting involved in catching this what, red caped vigilante, then shouldn't we be focusing on catching the purifier and his mob of what? Before Frank could finish his sentence, a man walked in. Roller worshippers there next to my list. The mysterious man in a green leather jacket. Grey t-shirt, brown latex tights, black boots, a bulletproof battle helmet with a red center eye, and two blue points sticking up on both sides. Who are you supposed to be? Frank asked. Detective Gavin, Detective Sinclair, meet Agent I of the Fate. As of now, you two are working under him. Chapter 5 Celine Harrison's Release. As soon as Agent I introduced himself to his new subordinates, they heard a bit of commotion going on outside the captain's office. Oh, great. What's got the other officers riled up? Outside Sinclair. Gavin, see to it. Frank and Sinclair obey the captain's orders and see What has the precinct in an uproar? They find Hodges, who is swearing at the TV set, along with some of his fellow policemen. Hodges, what's with the ruckus? Frank asked, as he then observed the TV. He sees what looks like to be a white haired young woman being released from uh, being released from prison in front of the entire press. Hey, isn't that Celine Harrison, the serial killer? The police called the meat grinder? Sinclair asked. Frank looks to Hodges, the other officers, and you can see the anger and dread on their faces. I can't believe they're letting that meat grinder out. Yelled with anger in his voice, filled with outrage. Why do they call her the meat grinder? Agent I asked as he entered the room. Because she ran down a bunch of teenage boys with a train back when she worked as a subway train conductor. That was 5 years ago. Frank sits down, overwhelmed, surprised. They would let this creature loose. Much like he did when he saw the purifier earlier on TV. He starts having that splitting headache, screaming in agony in front of everyone. Frank, are you alright? Sinclair asked as everyone around Frank was watching him. Yeah, I'm fine. It's just a headache. Just doesn't want to go away. Probably lack of sleep or something. Go rest up. Go rest up, Detective Frank. I will call you and Sinclair if I need to. Agent I said as he dismissed the detectives, the very same detectives, assigned to help him. Frank Gavin and Sinclair leave as Agent I goes through the records as he has become curious about Celine Harrison's case. He scrolls through all the records of his of this ruthless killer. Agent I is the type to be thorough with his assignment, investigating everything he can about the city of frailty, everything he read. Well, his earlier childhood indicated everything he read from Celine Harrison's file indicated she was a normal girl, a sporty type, was the head cheerleader for Patterson High, and later earned a scholarship to Patterson University just over to the south of Frailty City. As far as Agent I could work out, Celine Harrison was your typical average girl The more Agent I read her case, the more he wondered what could have possibly turned this high achieving prodigy into a murdering psychopath, especially one with a thing for running over men with vehicles. It didn't make sense to Agent I. Something had to have happened to make her like this. I mean, one doesn't just wake up one morning and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go around, run over some men today. Agent I thought to himself as he kept looking at the records. After learning more about her high level school and college achievements, it was truly a shame. She could have been an award winning physicist, perhaps even a star athlete or a movie star. Then Agent I found something interesting. Apparently, her life went downhill after Celine had met a man named Ehrlich Evanston. According to many calls from Celine to the police in these records call, calling for a restraining order, Ulrich Evanston was abusive and a repeat offender. No matter how many times Celine put a restraining order on that man, he also came back into her life somehow. According to her own words, he'd always have some story about how he has changed and not like that anymore. Because of that, Celine never pressed charges, rescinded the restraining order, and invited that creep back into her life. Agent I couldn't help but reflect on his childhood, being the foster kid to a couple of drunks, so he understood toxic relationships and Stockholm Syndrome pretty well. As Agent I read on, he then found the records that would answer his question. One night, well, about 7 years ago, things went bad to, to terrifying, as Ehrlich was badly beating her one night. Celine had managed to escape his clutches. According to the police incident report, Celine got to her car and tried to leave, but Ehrlich got in the way, trying to stop her. And out of a moment fueled by pure desperation, Celine slammed down on the accelerator and violently ran over Ehrlich 3 times over. As Agent I observed the documents from the court case, the judge ruled the incident as self defense, and rather than give Celine prison time for the killing of Ehrlich, she was forced to go to mandatory counseling for further examination. It took a while, but thanks to Agent I's fake clearance, he was able to get a hold of the records for Celine's sessions, and Agent I began reading through the records one by one, starting with Celine's first session from Dr. Harold Dickinson. Patient, patient report. Celine Harrison. Friday, 17th October 2016. By Dr. Harold Dickinson. The patient seems to show deep remorse for her actions, Celine seems to be struggling with getting over the tragic incident. Patience. Hmm. Sorry, read that part again. Patient report, Celine Harrison, Friday, 17th October 2016, by Dr. Harold Vickinson. The patient seems to have shown deep remorse in her actions. Celine seems to be struggling with getting over the tragic incident. Patient is still in shock and needs more time. Agent I then flipped through the report and began scanning through it. Patient report, Celine Harrison, Monday, 20th October 2016, by Dr. Harold Vickinson. The patient seems to be in a better place this time around. She had just got herself a new job as a conductor for a subway train. She says she still dreams about the incident, but that's to be expected. Such a traumatizing and tragic incident. I think would give us all night terrors still. I continue to listen and observe. Agent I continued to read more reports. Eventually, the new entries began to raise some serious red flags. He finds that the next report he finds the next report and reads. This time it seems psychologist Dr. Harold Vickinson is now the crazy one. I was completely wrong and had been I was completely wrong and had been from the start. Now having a month to spend with my patient Celine Harrison, I made a huge mistake in my first report. I stated that the patient Celine was remorseful about her actions. However, I now know I was gravely mistaken, for she is not remorseful at all about having run over Ehrlich with her car. Dr. Vickinson stated in his report, in fact, she is obsessed with it. She's getting a thrill out of reliving it, the experience in her dreams. It doesn't stop talking about it. This behavior is scaring me. Agent I moved on to the final notes. Patient appears unresponsive today, yet she seems to be excited about something. I'm feeling a sense of dread as I see her smiling at me. It's making me feel uncomfortable. Wait, someone has barged into my office. It's her. What does she... What? Oh! The final report ends there, and according to the police records, Dr. Vickinson was her first official victim. When his body was found all over the subway tunnels, sliced and diced by Celine's train. The first of at least 15 confirmed dead found in the abandoned subway tunnels where she ground up her victims with a subway train, earning her the name the Grinder. And now I get it. Agent I thought to himself, she's one of those cases where you kill someone a certain way and develop a taste for it. Agent I continues his hypothesis. Celine was victimized and dominated by her boyfriend Ehrlich. The moment she ran over him, she experienced what it was like to have ultimately dominated someone for the first time. Having all that power over someone. Agent I continued. To kill someone like that can become addicting, like a drug or a perversion. And now they have released her? The idiots! She will kill again. Sorrow can wait. Agent I's voice activates the direct line to the Fate Director's office due to Agent I's helmet having telecommunications phone technology. Yeah, this writing, my writing definitely needs to be edited. I will say that it needs to be edited by a proper editor. Director Valerie, I need an authorization to kill order. This city has released a serial killer who is without a doubt going to kill again. Do I have your authorization? Agent I, your mission is to restore order to the city of Frailty. You have full command on this operation, but if it makes you feel better, yes, you have my authority to terminate all rogue elements if necessary. Director Valerie responds, then hangs up. Chapter 6, Justin Colt's disappearance. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city of Frailty, up at Jew Barton High School, a young man with brown hair wearing the blue Jew Barton High School uniform, named Justin Colts, takes one last look at the high school he had called home for the last 5 years. Today was his 18th birthday, as well as graduation day for the class of 2023. Justin Colts was an exceptionally bright student, kind and caring, would always step in for those who needed it, just despite being treated badly by most at his school, except for a girl named Mandy, a girl with short brunette hair. No matter how others treated Justin, Mandy's smile was always enough to make him smile, made him feel special, even loved. This is why he felt a little sentimental about graduating and leaving the school as he up the biggest hill overlooking the amazing view of the classrooms. This was the exact spot where he first met Mandy. The ceremony was a 2-hour affair with performances from the student body, a tribute video containing all the fun events, memories of the graduating class, including how Justin won the science fair and even won the cross-country race. Mandy couldn't help but snuggling closer to Justin, getting giddy seeing him on the video. I'm so proud of you, Justin. You have come such a long way from that shy boy I met 5 years ago on the hill. Mandy said, sneaking in a cuddle for Justin. Justin blushes and turns away. Please, Mandy, we're in a crowd. How cute. My Justin, always the shy boy. Mandy says as she sneaks in a kiss on his cheek. Soon, the graduating class is called by name, one by one, to get their high school diploma. As Justin receives his diploma, he looks out to the parents who have come to see their kids' graduation. Sadly, he can't find his parents, probably drunk on the couch back home. I guess that's why he always studied harder than anyone. He didn't want to be anything like his parents. Nevertheless, he had done it. He had graduated. He was free. As the ceremony came to an end, he ran off as fast as he could, stripped out of his school uniform and abandoning it at the school gate. As he ran, he took his first steps outside the school grounds. As now as a graduated young man with his life ahead of him, he didn't get too far as a car came scarcely close to him. He looked to see it was Mandy trying to scare him. Sorry I scared you, Justin. I hope you're okay, says with a smile, sticking her tongue out at him. Please, Mandy, me scared? I knew it was you, Justin said, sounding sure of himself. What do you want, Mandy? Mandy looked surprised he would ask her that, for she believed what she wanted from him was obvious. Still, smiled and answered, I just wanted to offer you a ride home. You can't catch the school bus anymore, and it's a long walk to your house. So how about you just let me drive you home, Justin? Justin is taken aback by this and thinks while he considers her offer, he wants to go with her. He wants to jump in Mandy's car and drive away with her into the sunset. Yet, this is also his last chance to walk this route home. There will be other opportunities to cruise away with Mandy and maybe tell her how he feels about her, he thought to himself. I think I'll walk this time. This will be my last chance to do it. I'll see you tomorrow, assuming we're still on for our movie. Maybe hit the arcade. But thank you for your offer, Mandy. Mandy seems a little surprised and concerned with his answer, even though this was essentially the quieter side of Frailty City. It didn't mean a long walk was exactly the safest option. However, Mandy did accept and respect Justin's decision and wishes, despite her instinct to make sure he got home safely. All right, Justin, if that's what you want, please be safe. Call me the minute you're home, okay? Okay, Mom. Whatever you say, Mom. Do I get a lollipop for being a good boy, too? Justin teased Mandy. God, Justin, you're lucky you're not my child. I'd have killed you years ago. Mandy smiles and drives away. As she drove away from Justin, she couldn't help but watch him fade away into the distance as she drove further away. She can't help but feel a mysterious feeling of loss. She couldn't explain it. It was as if this was the last time she was going to see Justin. She wanted so badly to turn around and insist he come with her right now. She eventually got over those thoughts, telling herself she was just being paranoid. Meanwhile, Justin walked off alone, heading further into the heart of the city, towards his home. He was happy and excited to be out of school now and ready to make his start in the real world. He already knew what he wanted to do with himself: become a researcher, a doctor of medicine. He wanted to help, make a difference in people's lives. Something he always wanted to do for people. He thought about those thoughts as he walked home. He also thought about a life with Mandy and everything else the world may have to offer him. He then came across an alleyway with an open van parked on the inside. He briefly looks when he is ambushed by two assailants who pretended to ask for help as they jump him and throw him inside the van. The assailants were the Purifier's associates, and now they were driving him to an unknown location, under the tunnels beneath the city. They handed his unconscious body to their client, who hired them for the abduction. The client was Celine Harrison herself, who, you guessed it, also a Roller worshipper, wearing a demon mask. She had met other Roller cult members in prison and became a follower. As a fellow Roller cult member, she can ask other cultists to do solids for her in exchange for money that helps their ridiculous cause in trying to summon an interdimensional deity. The cultists do anything from helping you buy your groceries to even assassinations in some cases. In this case, the Purifier's goons were hired to kidnap Celine's next victim. Oh, wow, thanks, boys. You brought me a cute one this time. Let me take a look at him, Celine says as she caresses Justin's unconscious face. Oh, you're almost too cute for me to grind up with Sally. Sally, the name of her train. Oh, redo that. Oh, you're almost too cute to be grind up with Sally. That's the name of my train. Just kidding. The fact you're cute makes me want it more. Celine then looks up to the Purifier's goons and orders them to tie him up and place him on the tracks. Some where she showed them earlier. Not too far away, but not too close either. Celine was the type who liked to build up the suspense and excitement as she ground up her victims with Sally. To her, this was better than any other kind of pleasure. Once, she got a text that the unconscious Juster was in position. She started her train and drove it at a slow speed, completely in suspense, as she came across Justin, who lay unconscious just ahead. Celine couldn't contain her excitement as she was about to grind up this guy, achieving the ultimate domination over him, as she did with other countless victims before him. This would be her first victim in 5 long years since she was imprisoned. Justin finally regained consciousness, but only long enough to realize the inescapable situation he was in. He was truly about to die. He saw the blonde woman in the demon mask driving the train slowly at him. He's tied and trapped to the tracks, with nowhere to go. All he could do was accept his fate and think about Mandy one last time. Thinking of her beauty, her personality, their friendship, and secret love for each other. And now he thought of the sadness and the realization he'd never have that life with her now. His usual desire to be alone has now become his undoing, as he thinks his final thoughts as the train drove over him were how he should have gotten in the car with Mandy and let her drive him home. I wish I could say it ended quickly for Justin, but Celine loves to make her victims scream. She loves the power she feels as she hears those final screams. She would imagine the terror she has inflicted, not only on Justin, but his loved ones, family, when they eventually hear the news. That, that it was her power that did this. That she made minced spaghetti out of Justin. After Celine went out of her train, admire admiring her handiwork. She drove on, laughing maniacally, leaving what was left of Justin behind. With all these abandoned tunnels, Celine had plenty of places to hide her train. Chapter 6. Sorrows. The sorrows of a teenage girl cry out for vengeance. It is night time at Freight City Park. It is dark and cloudy. Wind is cold. Dreadful night. Mostly everyone was indoors. For those who were homeless and the except for those who were homeless. And the night patrolman in charge was watching over the park. For him, it was the most it was for the most part a normal night until he had come upon a man sleeping on a bench. Hey buddy, move it on. You can't sleep here, night patrolman said as he shook the man awake. The man was Detective Frank Gavin, who regains consciousness and awakens, huh? Hey, how'd I end up here? What's going on? Frank said as he looked. With a look of confusion, was the patrolman shown a flashlight in his face. Oh, Detective Gavin, sir, what are you doing here? You know the law, no sleeping in the park, the patrolman said as he immediately lowered the flashlight. I'm not sure. I don't even remember coming to the park. Obviously, I did. Must have taken a seat. Must have taken a seat here and fell asleep. Right then, Frank's phone rings. As he listens to the phone call, his eyes widen in shock. As the news he has gotten is clearly not good news, he hangs up and seems to be staring into space for a minute or two. What is it, the patrolman asked. Mint's body was discovered in one of the abandoned subway tunnels at Darman Avenue. Celine has killed again. Already. As you were, patrolman. Frank said as he began to walk to the crime scene. It was only a 3 to 5 minute walk. As he arrives at the scene of the crime, there is a huge crowd of reporters and concerned citizens. After flashing his badge, he is granted access to the crime scene. As he ventures into the tunnel, meeting up with both his partner, Detective Sinclair, and Agent I was there as well. It's about time, Frank. Did you oversleep or something? That's typical of you, Frank said with a smart-ass smirk. What's Agent I doing here? I thought he was here to help us catch the vigilante. Agent I looks to Frank and walks right up to him. I have been authorized to terminate this grinder killer for you. After that, I will catch the vigilante, with or without your help. Is that a problem, Frank? Agent I asked. No problem whatsoever, just curious is all. Frank said as he saw the minced up body of the boy. Gross, that is just sick. Do we have an identity? His name was Justin Colts. There was a student ID in his pocket, Agent I stated. This seems to hit Frank hard, almost personally, as he processed the fact that Celine just murdered a high school student. A boy who really was only a baby and had his whole life ahead of him. His eyes begin glowing yellow as he seems to be overcome with rage. That heartless! Frank yells. Agent I observes this behavior and can see for a moment the yellow eyes. Hey Frank, you okay? Listen, maybe you should go home and rest. You don't look very well, Sinclair said with concern for his partner. No, I'm Fine, I can handle it. Look, Frank, there are plenty of us, including a fate agent. Please, I insist, go rest up. Sinclair insisted as he guided his partner towards the outside. As Frank leaves, he overhears the reporter release the identity of the victim. He also notices a teenage girl in the crowd in tears. It was Mandy, the best friend of the victim. Very sad. No more than said she was heartbroken that Justin had been murdered, and he even seemed angry. She noticed Frank looking at her. She dropped the rag she was crying into, as she couldn't bear this sight anymore, and ran off. Frank Gavin touches the rag as he gets visuals and images in the form of visions about Mandy's friendship with Justin. It was clear she was secretly in love with him, and he sees vision of Mandy offering to drive Justin home, and it was obvious to Frank that Mandy bl- blames herself for what's happened. He started reacting again, his rage making his eyes glow yellow as he ran out of sight, clutching his gut, bent over like he was in pain. He finds an alleyway out of sight, steps into the shadow, and with a golden explosion, he emerges in Frank's place. It's Sorrow. Sorrow takes flight, overlooking the city for any traces of evil. To him, evil energy was a dark color. He would watch for it closely, knowing that this would lead him straight to Celine the grinder. He spots this big concentration of evil energy coming from the left side of the city. Sorrow follows it as it leads him to an abandoned subway station. With his raw strength and power, Sorrow punches and shatters the ground, creating a hole that he can float down. There, he discovers Sally, Celine's train. He approaches the front of this killing machine, observing the human blood on the front of the train. He touches it and gets a whole new set of visions of the victim Justin's life, as well as what fate had originally planned for him. He saw how Justin was studying hard to overcome his tragic upbringing by self abusing alcoholic parents. He saw the entire what could have been scenario of Justin's life play out. He would have been a doctor and researcher responsible for permanently curing not only cancer but also uncovering secrets to true anti aging. Sorrow also saw Justin would have been married to Mandy, the girl he saw crying. They would have three amazing children together, a beautiful life that would have made a difference for a lot of people. A life Justin was robbed of thanks to this sick, psychopathic woman. Sorrow's anger grew, his telekinetic powers grew. He let off an angry scream, crushing, destroying, crunching up Sally's train as if it were a piece of paper from a notebook. This train has killed its last victim. Celine, you murdered an innocent kid who had his whole life ahead of him. I swear, he will have his revenge. Through me! Sorrow vows as he takes flight again, determined to seek out Celine. And he finds her quickly enough, walking to her apartment. And Sorrow swoops down and takes her in the air like an eagle. What the hell is this? Put me down at once, Celine shouts. Sorrow doesn't respond. He merely uses his hypnotic powers to put her into some trance as he hovers above some nearby train tracks. This is for everyone you murdered with your train. You shall suffer the same fate for all eternity. Sora says as he drops Celine. Plenty of stories up, landing onto the train tracks just as a speeding express train comes along. Celine gives off a final scream as she is run over and killed by the express train, much like she did to others. However, this was only the beginning of her punishment. Her consciousness, her soul, travels back in time, inhabiting her first victim's final moments, as she is consciously put through the suffering she has dealt out to all her victims, one by one, all the way up to Justin, in an endless loop, a true hell of her own making. As she feels what her victims felt in their final moments, and the horror of watching herself, running herself over. So then paid a visit to Justin's bedroom in his parents' house. He had come to cure his family of their self-abusive lifestyle, but it seems with the police informing them of their son's fate, they had thrown out all their alcohol and are truly ashamed they missed their son growing up because of their lifestyle. Sorrow notices a journal on Justin's desk. Inside it contains his true feelings about everyone, including his feelings about his parents. Even though Sorrow can't resurrect the dead, he can leave Justin's loved ones a final gift of closure. Sorrow's eyes start glowing yellow as he reads the entry like an incantation, creating a ghostly like Justin who floats over to his parents and recites them the journal entry as if he was there. His mum and dad are shocked to see what they think is their son's ghost. Mum and Dad, I hope you know I don't blame you for your choices. You are my parents and I still love you. I only hope you can someday stop this behavior. For my younger sister Jolie, she needs a mum and dad. I know in the end you will do the right thing. I love you all. I only wish I dared to say this to your face. The, mem- the memory ghost of Justin disappears as Sorrow flies to the residence of Mandy's side. Residence of Mandy's. Side effect of seeing visions of someone you know, what they know. Sorrow hovers above her bedroom and gives her the same gift. A passage from the journal that expressed his true love for her as a memory ghost. Sorrow then flies off, landing on top of an abandoned building. His transformation wears off as a golden explosion goes off, revealing Sorrow to be Frank Gavin, the very cop assigned to capture Sorrow. What? How is it possible? How could I be Sorrow? Frank has now come to acknowledge and realize the truth that he is Sorrow. As he does, he glows yellow again and is randomly teleported to this abandoned bit of land just outside the city. Chapter 7, The Gavin House. Frank is alone as he moves about the weird abandoned land on the outskirts of Freight City. He becomes drawn to this strange piece of material. It seems to be glowing yellow as his aura begins to glow yellow in response, and the material takes flight, and more like it begin to swarm together, flying around Frank and forming together like a puzzle. They keep flocking together, solidifying, and taking shape. Whatever this was big. Suddenly, dimensional vortexes began to form. Small material that seemed to be coming from another dimension began to form, forging into a house. The house was a peculiar shape, a long, beautiful front yard that is forged with it. Door was shaped like an arch. On top, it had the words Gavin House inscribed. Frank couldn't help but step over the threshold inside, revealing a huge mansion, beautiful and big. It had a line of portraits of men and women all alongside the wall, most of which, like Frank, realized, of course, these men and women were his ancestors. He always wondered why he never found any record of his family's existence before his mum and dad. Well, Frank was about to learn the truth now. As he reaches the center of the room, and the eyes of the portraits glow yellow and aimed beams at Frank, surrounding him in that same energy. Levitating Frank, he screamed as he was filled with all the memories of his ancestors. Every memory flashed into him. He saw visions of each of the Gavins in each portrait, having one thing in common. They were all worked side by side with sorrow in vanquishing evil. Yes, I understand now, Frank said out loud, as if he were accepting his destiny as the new sorrow. As he leaves Gavin House with his newfound knowledge, he heeds the call as he transforms into sorrow himself. In other words, wasn't triggered by emotion or anything like that. He was actually able to transform himself, turn the key himself. He flies off into the night. And that is as far as I've written into the official Sorrow story at the moment. So, well, if anyone actually jumped on and saw this, I hope you guys at least enjoyed it. I had a good time reading it out loud. So now I'm just going to add a little something to the comments so when people jump in. So, I'm going to leave this running for about 5, 10 more minutes. This is your chance for you guys to get your questions in. Yeah, I'm just going to sit here and wait the 5 minutes. Hmm. I wonder though. Hmm. Perhaps people have been leaving comments and I'm not seeing them. What? Hmm. Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone's been here. Oh, well, 3 more minutes. Hmm. Hmm. Well, fun reading the story, but I'm a little disappointed no one engaged. Oh, Alright, last minute. Maybe next time we'll have to, I don't know, try giving you like 24-hour notice or something. In fact, I might go live again tomorrow. We can do a complete live what if right here. You guys can throw ideas at me and I'll pick one and I'll what if live with you guys and we can all discuss it and like do the what if together. Okay, time's up. I'm ending the stream.